Old Joe Clark was a fine old man. Tell you the reason why. Blew his nose in old cornbread and called it pumpkin pie. Fare thee well, old Joe Clark, fare thee well, I say. Fare thee well, old Joe Clark, now I'm gone away. Old Joe Clark not only was a fine old man, but is a great song as an introduction to flat picking. In fact, I've decided to use Old Joe Clark as kind of our Magna Carta Rosetta Stone template song to show almost everything you need to know about the flat picking style in this one tune. There's a Zen saying, that says you can travel around the world and see everything, or you can sit in one spot and the whole world will go by you. I've realized that if you really look at Old Joe Clark, and we're going to play several variations, almost every technique and cool move in flat picking can be gotten from this one song. And so we're going to use this as our template. The first thing to be noted about Old Joe Clark, and the one reason that it will serve as a good template song for us in this workshop, is that as flat pickers, we're called on to do two primarily different things in our flat picking. One is to play fiddle tunes. The other is to create solos to songs with lyrics. And it so happens that Old Joe Clark has both of those built into it. It's a song with lyrics, and it's often played purely as an instrumental fiddle tune. So in its A section, it's very much like a pure fiddle tune, and in the B section, it's very much like a vocal song. And so one reason we've selected Old Joe Clark is that it embodies these two skills and approaches in a single tune, and that's why I've selected it here. Let's start out by looking at the first solo I just played, and we're going to start in with the A part. The first thing I want you to notice is just remember that pulse that we talked about, the pulse of fiddle music. Da, na, na, na. Listen how that's embodied in the lead that I'm playing. The pulse is there. Now, we're gonna really hone in. We're gonna zone in on anything that's important and interesting on this particular song. We're gonna play several other songs later on in the video where we're not gonna quite get as micro in our view, but this song is our starting point, and we want to hone in. So first off, that's just a bunch of eighth notes, and pretty much the same technique you would use in our C scale that we played earlier would be used on the A part of Old Joe Clark. The first thing I want to call your attention to that's a little bit different is the hammer-on that I do from the first to the third string on the first to the third string, the first to the third fret on the second string. And that's because I'm employing a special power pick technique called a rest stroke on that note. Here's what I'm talking about. That hammer-on is not just a regular way of picking the string. That is a special power technique that's in flat picking mostly associated with rhythm playing, but in fact is a very important skill in lead playing. That is called a rest stroke. What is a rest stroke? The term rest stroke comes from classical guitar, where it was used to describe a way of picking a string where let's say your thumb would come to rest on the string below the one you're hitting. So that would be a classical rest stroke. In bluegrass, a rest stroke involves kind of snapping the pick down onto the string below the one you're hitting. So our rest stroke is happening on the B string. So if I hit a rest stroke on the B string, the sound that I'm going to be making is this. Snap onto the E string. And it involves tilting my hand and pick at a forward angle and putting a little pressure on the string before I hit it. And sort of with my thumb, it's almost like my right hand thumb the feeling is almost as if I'm pressing a tack into a piece of hardwood. I'm going snap. There are the number 2 has come up as I've been preparing material for this workshop. The number 2 is the central number to remember here, because there's like 5 different things that involve 2. I've already introduced one. I said as flatpickers we're called on to do 2 main approaches to tunes. One is fiddle tunes, the other is creating solos for songs with lyrics. Two approaches. Here on our lead playing, there's really 2 different ways of hitting notes. The regular way, in which if I normally am hitting a note on the B string, I am going right into the air and avoiding the E string. If I want to hit a rest stroke, I'm doing it completely opposite. I'm leaning forward and going snap for that extra power. So listen to that phrase again and notice how the rest stroke has given us a lot of extra oomph and pizzazz. Completely different beast from a normal note. And that's because at that point I want to give the song an extra little oomph. Now, why do I want to give the song a little oomph there? Well, it's because in my mind, I'm thinking about this a little bit vocally oriented. And if you sing Old Joe Clark, Old Joe Clark was a fine old man, tell you the reason why. That the word why gets like an extended amount of time from all the other lyrics, and that is the logical note to kind of give a little extra juice to. So I'm thinking a little bit lyrically, vocally, as I'm approaching this fiddle tune. It just sounds right. That's the money note in that sequence. That's the one you want to italicize with a rest stroke. And this is one thing that you'll never get from tablature. That's why this is a good video to own. Because that special emphasis, that really is what adds personality and style to your flat picking. And as you can see, we're hopping right in and getting right into it here. We're not teaching some really elementary, simple version of the tune. We're hopping in with real flat picking. As I said before, if you've taken your time and learned that C scale and how to modify it and put the fiddle pulse in, you're ready to roll, folks. We start the B section off again with a pull-off and a series of 2 rest strokes. Now the B section of the song is the one that's really vocally oriented. So as I'm constructing this B section, the arrangement, I'm really thinking of syllables of the song. So I'm thinking key is what I'm thinking. It's fare thee well, old Joe Clark, fare thee well, I say. And you'll really hear the singing in the arrangement of the B section. Here's the B section slow, starting out with a double rest stroke, coming out of the A. Let's break that down and look at the specific things. As I said, we're starting out with a double rest stroke. And And then we're doing a slide 4 to 5 on the D string. It's not a normal slide. It's what's called a grace note slide, which means it's like a super fast slide. A regular slide would be just, but we're going. So that little slide is sort of like an embellishment to the note that we're sliding into. We're really hitting that note, but we're giving it a little grace note or embellishment. So we're going. Now, I mentioned 2 is the magic number here. The third area where a 2 enters into our thinking and playing is hitting 2 strings simultaneously as a lead device, not as a strum. And that happens right here as we're singing, Old Joe Clark. So we're doing a slide from the 2nd to the 3rd fret on the 1st and 2nd strings. But the important thing I want you to observe here is that on my right hand, I am treating those 2 notes as a single note and played with the same kind of focus and articulation as I would a single lead note. If I went, I'm hitting both, and I'm keeping the attitude of my right hand exactly like I would for hitting any kind of a punchy downstroke on a single string. So I'm going. Next important thing, I'm following that slide with a quick down-up strum. Now, strums are associated with rhythm playing logically and most often. But the truth of the matter is, one thing that sets the flat-picking style apart from other styles like jazz or swing is that strums are routinely incorporated into flat-picking solos as part of a lead device. And again, our rule of 2, there are 2 different kinds of strums that we're going to be doing interspersed with our lead playing. One is just a regular strum, and the second is called I kind of call it a timing strum. It's almost like a very faint, almost subliminal strum that you wouldn't notice unless it was missing. And that's just like a regular strum, but it's done with a very lighter touch. And right in this phrase, you're going to hear both of those kind of strums. Because after I do my slide, I'm hitting a fairly regular straight-on ballsy down-up strum. Then I'm doing another series of two notes in a row. I like to say a word now, just spend a little extra time on the idea of here we are hitting 2 strings back to back on the 3rd and 2nd string, and that calls for a slightly different adjustment of your pick than hitting 1 string. If I'm hitting 1 string, I'm just starting flat in and going up. For 2, I have to be very conscious of my angle and going, because I want to clear that 3rd string, but I want to include the 2nd string in my riff. So we got. Now, right there is a timing strum that I talked about. It's like an afterthought musically. It's much quieter than any of the lead statements, but it adds a glue that holds the solo together. And a lot of times, if you see simple versions of tabs for songs, that will be missing, and the thing will sound kind of stilted and like one of those, bicycle built for 2 kind of intro songs from 20 years ago, which you don't want on a fiddle tune. So we want to inject rhythm into our lead playing, and right in this first B part of Old Joe Clark, we have like 4 different important things. We have rest strokes, we have 2 different kinds of strums, and we have hitting 2 notes at once. These are all real important tools in lead flat picking. Let's play it again and just take a look at that. that second phrase is pretty straightforward. Just note that when I get to the F note at the 3rd fret of the D string, I did a rest stroke because there was a pause there. It was a quarter note. I wanted to give it a little more juice, so I went. I did my regular strums, and then I go back to the first phrase for. Now here's the last phrase, the ending. I'm going. The interesting thing to note about that last phrase is that I'm sliding, my 3 to 4 slide on the G string is a rest stroke. I'm going. I'm actually hitting 2 rest strokes in a row. Then I'm going up, slide down with the index finger, and I'm finishing with a rest stroke pull-off. That same rest stroke pull-off, by the way, is the ending of like 90% of G runs in bluegrass rhythm when you get, like. So if that sounds familiar, it's every G run ends with that same double rest stroke pull-off. And we're applying it here to lead. If you're interested in that whole area, check out the rhythm video, and that goes into that in ornate detail. So here we are. B section of Old Joe Clark, we've just thrown in all sorts of techniques, and these all serve to add color and interest to your playing. Somebody who is playing Old Joe Clark without this would sound something like this, it would be like. You see tabs that have exactly that. That's we want to sing the song. And I'd say one other word about the strums involved there. Strumming involves a completely different hand set as opposed to mindset. Your right hand needs to have a completely different attitude from strumming as it does from picking a lead note. So when I get to the strums, my first strum comes in. My right hand lifts up and gets really loose and relaxed. I often describe a regular strum as like, imagine there's like some water, something stuck on your ring finger of your right hand, you want to flick it off. That's kind of the looseness and the attitude of the strum. Here's the ultrasonic view where I mute the strings. This is what's happening on that phrase where I'm going. It's like. And that last strum is a little lighter even than the other ones because that's a timing strum. So remember to make your strums and your lead notes lead notes. One other thing I didn't address when I was looking at how to hold your right hand, I was just talking about holding the pick. A lot of players, myself included, anchor their pinky on the front of the guitar. And when I'm playing a lead series, my pinky stays down all the time. When I'm strumming, it always comes up. It's by definition, just as a rest stroke is by definition a downstroke, a strum by definition involves ungluing your right hand from the guitar, or else it ain't a strum, no matter what somebody told you.